Let's see. Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, so today we're going to be doing a close reading on Their Eyes Were Watching God by Toni Morrison. And the goal of today's assignment is basically to, let me pass this on to you. Perform a close reading. And we are looking for the impact that literary elements have in an author's word choice. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go ahead and start the lesson off by asking you guys how much you recall about word choice, personification, and imagery in literature.
What's the question?
The question is, how does imagery, word choice, and personification impact the way that you understand text? Okay,
So how does it affect?
how does it affect or impact our text or what we read?
If you can see something by watching the image, you have a better understanding of the story.
Right, so you have a better understanding of the story when you're able to basically visualize what the author is saying. So based off of the reading of Toni Morrison's, a little bit of an issue there. That's what I was talking to you guys about.
I think you should have.
Okay, so based off of the readings on Toni Morrison, we're going to be reviewing chapter 9 of Their Eyes Were Watching God. And basically, I've chunked lines 1 through 24, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and first read this to you guys. And I'm going to read first. After I complete my reading, what I will do is I will go through it and model for you all how we find imagery in text. We're reading to decode what the author is implying or stating, whether it's implicit or explicit. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start here. Actually, what I'd like for you to do, I'll start, and if one of you guys can jump in, that would be great. I'm going to also give you some markers so that you can highlight as you read on the sheet protectors. There you go. Okay? So, Their Eyes Were Watching God, chapter 9 excerpt. Chunk 1, lines 1 through 24 is what we'll be focusing on. Janie starched and ironed her face and came set in the funeral behind her veil. It was like a wall of stone and steel. The funeral was going on outside. All things concerning death and burial were set and done, finished. And nevermore darkness, deep hole, dissolution, eternity, weeping and wailing outside. Inside, the expensive black folds were resurrection and life. Go ahead, someone jump in.
She did not reach outside for anything, nor did the things of death reach inside to disturb her calm. She set her face to Joe's funeral, and herself went rollicking with the springtime across the world. After a while, the people finished their celebration and Janie went on home. Before she slept that night, she burnt up every one of her head rags and went about the house next morning with her hair in one thick braid swinging well below her waist.
Go ahead, next person, please.
That was the only change people saw in her. She kept the store in the same way, except of evenings. She sat on the porch and listened and sent Ezekiel and to wait on late custom. She saw no reason to rush at changing things around. She would have the rest of her life to do as she pleased.
Okay, so we're going to stop with that first chunk, lines 1 through 24. So based off of what I read, David read, and Ralph read some of, what were you guys able to gather about what's taking place right now in Janie's life?
She said,
Okay, so she's sad, right? And we're able to gather that she's sad based off of what? Is it because there's a funeral going on? Or Is it the author's word choice that helps to support the fact that she is sad?
The word choice.
The word choice, okay. So what I would like us to do is I'd like us to go ahead on your screen, on your screens, on your papers, I'd like you to go ahead and underline or highlight those words that help support that Janie was sad. I want you to go ahead and do what you think is correct while I'm busy working up here. Okay, so I can tell that you guys have gone forward and highlighted a couple of things. So it shows that you guys do have some understanding of how Toni Morrison uses some word choice to depict and convey emotion in literature or in her text. So right here, I went ahead and I underlined the fact that Janie starched and ironed her face and came set in the funeral behind her veil. So when we're talking about starching and ironing like our clothes, typically we know that something that's starched and ironed is what? After it's wrinkled before, but then we starch and iron it, so it's what? Straight. But not only that, think of how it would feel. Would it be flimsy? Would it be stiff? Stiff, right? And do we typically associate stiffness with happiness? Okay, right? So if we describe or depict somebody as being stiff, we know that they're probably not smiling, they're not excited. So right here, the usage of starched and ironed her face automatically lets us know that this is a very serious occasion, and that more than likely Janie is upset or feeling some type of way. We're not totally sure because we don't realize that she's gone on to a funeral until we get to the second line. And the usage of the term behind her veil also helps us to understand the fact that Janie is hiding behind something, which means that she's not putting that stiff, sad, or angry face forward, but instead she's hiding behind something. That's something we don't know yet, okay? Some other words that I decided to go ahead and underline were darkness, deep hole, dissolution, and eternity. Why do you think that I would underline those words?
Because those words are sad.
Okay, those words are sad. Why do we associate darkness or the color black with sadness?
That's what they wear dark clothes to funerals.
Okay, because they wear dark clothes to funerals. So that's something that you're able to gather from your own personal experience or your prior knowledge. And the fact that eternity, what does eternity mean to us, that word eternity? Forever, right? So we know that this is something that's so real, it's done, Joe is dead, and there's nothing that we can do to bring him back. So there were no folds. It says inside the expensive black folds were resurrection and life. But we know that he's not coming back. And it also goes on to explain that she did not reach outside for anything, nor did the things of death reach inside to disturb her calm. She set her face to Joe's funeral, and herself went rollicking with the springtime across the world. What does that tell you? She sent herself to the funeral, but then another part of her face went to the funeral, but her body went somewhere else.
She died inside.
You think that it's significant? It's symbolic of death?
Or maybe she just couldn't bear to go inside.
She couldn't bear to go in there fully, 100% herself. Very, very good, David. Thank you. So I just kind of wanted to get that started to get you guys to go on to reading the second chunk together. And in this second chunk, my goal is that you will read it, and we're reading not only for understanding, but to also parallel with the guiding questions that I'll provide you with to kind of cement the meaning of the text. We know that Toni Morrison uses a lot of imagery in the text. Not Toni Morrison, I apologize, Zora Neale Hurston uses a lot of imagery in the text to really convey not only what's going on in the moment, but to also bring the characters to life. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to provide you with those. And if, Ralph, if you can start reading, that would be great. Thank you.
Most of the day she was at the store, but at night she was there in the big house, and sometimes it creaked and cried all night under the weight of lonesomeness. Then she'd lie awake in bed, asking lonesomeness some questions. She asked if she wanted to leave and go back where she had come from and try to find her mother. Maybe tend her grandmother's grave, sort of look over the old stamping ground generally. Digging around inside of herself like that, she found that she had no interest in that
Seldom seen
mother at all. She hated her grandmother and had hidden it from herself all these years under a cloak of pity. She had been getting ready for her great journey to the horizons in search of people. It was important to all the world that she shouldn't find them and they find her. But she had been whipped like a cur dog and run off down a back road after things. It was all according to the way you see things. Some people could look at the mud puddle and see an ocean of ships.
Very good. So we read it the first time. Do we get the total meaning of that up front, or do you think we need to go ahead and reread that again? Reread, right? Because sometimes that first time, that first read around doesn't necessarily give us the full meaning of the text. So with the repeated reading, you hear it one time, you're able to process it perhaps as the person who's reading, but then it's also good to hear someone else read it in another tone so that you can pick it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow David to read. Actually, David, you've read already. If you can go ahead and read for me. And then I will lastly pick up on the reading. Go ahead.
But Nanny belonged to that other kind that looked deep and scratched. Here Nanny had taken things God had ever made the horizon, no matter how far a person can go, the horizon is still way beyond it. It hitched it into such a little bit of a thing that she could tie it around her grandmother's neck, tight enough to choke her. She hated the old one who had told her so in the name of love. Most humans didn't love one another know how, and this mislove was so strong that even on blood couldn't overcome it all the time. She had finally drove down inside herself, and she had wanted to walk where people could see her and lead it around. But she had been set in the marketplace itself, and set for still days, that God may have made the man he made him out of stuff that some other time he could home.
All right, so I'm going to start back with that second chunk. Most of the day, she was at the store, but at night, she was there in the big house, and sometimes it creaked and cried all night under the weight of lonesomeness. Then she'd lie awake in bed asking lonesomeness some questions. She asked if she wanted to leave and go back where she had come from and try to find her mother. Maybe tend her mother's grave, sort of look over the old stamping ground generally, digging around inside of herself like that she found that she had no interest in that seldom seen mother at all. She hated her grandmother and had hidden it from herself all these years under a cloak of pity. She had been getting ready for her great journey to the horizons in search of people. It was important to all the world that she could find them and they find her. But she had been whipped like a cur dog and run off down a back road after pigs. it was all according to the way you see things. Some people could look at a mud puddle and see an ocean with ships. What literary device does the author use in chunk 2 to address this concept of loneliness? What literary device or literary term does the author use to address this concept of loneliness? So when we're talking about literary devices, one of the simplest ones that I'm pretty sure you guys might remember from like middle school is eye shampoo.
Eye shampoo?
Yes, you guys never learned eye shampoo? Really? You never learned eye shampoo?
Is that like all the letters for the words?
Yeah, it's a, so I believe it is irony, simile, shampoo, so H, hyperbole, A for alliteration, M for metaphor, P, personification, okay? O, onomatopoeia. I always get the spelling of this really upside down, so onomatopoeia. And the other O would be what? Cold sweats. Oh, I have cold sweats. Will be an example of one of these. You guys remember? Oxymoron. Yes. Wow. You guys are rusty. Okay, so oxymoron. Let me go ahead and clear this. So now that we've moved on to the second chunk, if Rob, if you can come up here and show me where the author uses a literary device to, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down on the computer. In chunk 2, where the author uses a literary device in order to provide the reader with a more significant understanding of Janie's feelings. Okay, so let's start off with that beginning part. If you can go ahead and read for me, and Ralph, just stop him when he gets to that point where you realize that there is some literary device, based off of the ones we went over with eye shampoo, that's taking place in the reading. Go ahead.
Yesterday, she was at the store, but at night she was there in the big house, and sometimes she would creep and cry all night until they would stop.
Let me try it again.
Just underline the creek and cry. Just like that. You go on the whole sentence.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, go ahead and read. All right, it's working now. It creaked and cried. Okay, so the usage of it creaked and cried would be considered a what? It would be an example of personification. Very, very good. So the usage of creak and cry describes what? The house, right? So what does this tell us about this house? It is perhaps, what can we infer? The house is old, right? Okay, let's keep going.
That then she would lie awake in bed asking lonesomeness questions.
Okay.
Isn't that what?
That is what? What's happening there?
She's asking lonesomeness questions. Lonesomeness is not a person.
Lonesomeness is not a person. Very good. So where would we underline? Can I actually use the actual dry erase marker on here? No, right?
What happened to the pencil that they had there?
I don't have any.
Yeah, that's it.
strangers with them. So, okay, Ralph Green. I guess we can touch on each other. So then she'd lie awake in bed, asking lonesomeness some questions. So, what can we infer from the personification of lonesomeness about Jamie and what she's going through in her sentiment from the text?
She's questioning herself.
She's questioning herself. And she's questioning herself in what state?
She's lonely, but she's questioning like the reasons why.
Yes, very, very good, David. So she's lonely and she's questioning herself about her loneliness in the process. Okay, continue with the reading.
She asked if she wanted to leave and go back where she had come from and try to find her mother. Maybe tend her grandmother's grave. Sort of live over the old stamping ground generally. Digging around inside of herself like that, she found that she had no interest in that seldom seen mother at all. She hated her grandmother and had hidden it from herself all these years under a cloak of pity. So,
Okay,
that's
cloak of pity. So what are we getting across with that? I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Andre. With the cloak of pity, what do we pick up on that? Is it a literary device that's being used there, or a cloak of pity? Do you think that that is personification occurring again? Can we literally put a cloak or a jacket on pity? So we're clothing or physically attempting to clothe an emotion, right? Okay, so based off of just so far what we're reading in these chunk pieces of text, what are you guys able to pick up about the author and her use of words and syntax? Just what is she conveying through these words to you? Why is she using so much figurative language?
So you can better understand the way she feels.
Okay, so we can get a better understanding of how she feels, but what else? What is it doing for you as a reader? Okay, so you think that the author is trying to bring you into the character's shoes, perhaps? Okay. Why do you think that Hurston might have chosen to personify loneliness? Why make loneliness a person? Kind of like how I'm standing here and Ralph is here. We're two people standing here. Why make me the sad person or the lonely person and then make Ralph that actual feeling or emotion that I'm undergoing?
You say why?
Yes. Why would we personify a feeling as if it were a person? What do you think Janie, after Joe's funeral, what do you think she's really dealing with? You already mentioned it, David, the fact that she was lonely, but what do you think is happening more so?
She lost someone really important.
Okay, and now what's keeping her company?
I'm thinking maybe
Nothing. Yeah, she's lonely. She's so lonely that loneliness is keeping her company.
Isn't that some irony or something?
Yes, yes. So there's irony in this as well. Very, very good. I'm glad that you picked up on that. Let's keep going. I'll go ahead and continue to stroll. Let's keep going with the reading.
She had been getting ready for the great journey to the horizons in search of people. It was important to all of the world that she could find them and they find her. Isn't that what you mean?
Okay, so it was important to all of the world and they find her. What do you think? What part? What part did you feel was a piece of
To all the world.
to all the world? How about that great journey to the horizons? Okay, so what do you think that great journey to the horizons is symbolic of? Go ahead and underline it, Ralph. You might have to touch it in. Push it hard. So that great journey to the horizons, symbolic of what? So we're talking about death, we're talking about darkness, now we're talking about a journey to the horizons. We know that the horizon is where what? The sun sets, and how and where the day ends. So what can we infer?
It's endless or something?
Endlessness, what else? We talked about a cloak of pity. We're talking about her being super lonely. What else can we infer from this? That she had been getting ready for her great journey to the horizons in search of people. It was important to all the world that she should find them and they find her. We said it was endless. So we know that this is what? Something that's going to last a long time, keep going, not stop. What else? Think that's it? Okay, that's fine. So let's keep going. But she had been whipped like a cur dog and run off down a back road after things. What does that word cur mean? What do you think we can infer, or what context can we use to help us better understand cur? Huh? Okay, stray dog. Why would you say stray dog? Stray would kind of best help to understand the word or the term cur. Because of whipped. And we typically think of dogs that are left out there to be what? Abused, used, nobody cares about them, people do whatever they do just to kind of shoo or push them away. Okay, so it was all according to the way you see things. Some people could look at a mud puddle and see an ocean with ships. What is that symbolic of? Some people can look at a mud puddle and see an ocean with ships.
Some people see things more than it is.
Some people see things for more than what it is. More than that, though. If I'm telling you a mud puddle, that's dirt, right? And when we go to the beach, I mean, for the most part, if it's a beautiful day or if it's early in the morning, we can see the ships on the horizon. It's beautiful. So how can I see beauty in something that's so dark and low?
I guess because of her loneliness, maybe?
Loneliness can do that. You probably have the ability to see things in a better light. What else? Use those guiding questions that are in front of you. That's the grandmother. That's the grandmother. Here. Do those guiding questions. Just some more of those guiding questions. To pair with these. So if you're looking here. Okay. But then we talk about grandma in this space too. We talk about the horizons, then we move on to the ship. So we're looking at things greater than what they actually are. But let's go back to that journey to the horizons in search of people. What can you gather about that? And how it relates to grandma?
Is that what the grandmas are there dead too?
Excuse me?
Are the grandmas dead too?
Is the grandma dead? Let's see.
She's serious.
What did the text state?
It does say she, something about her hatred over there.
Yeah, it does. It mentions the grandma, maybe tend to grandmother's grave. So we know that grandma's dead. And how did Janie feel about grandma? She hated her, right? Okay? So we know that she hated her. So let's go back a little bit more. Digging around outside of herself, like she had found that she had no interest in that seldom seen mother at all. So digging around like inside of her feelings, right? That's what she's really talking about, communicating those feelings. And the fact that she hated her grandmother and had hidden it from herself all these years. So basically, she's been lying to herself about how she truly feels about the reality of her situation. Okay? She had been getting ready for her great journey to the horizons in search of people. It was important to all the world that she should find them and that they should find her. But she had been whipped like a cur dog, used, abused, left out as a stray. Nobody cared about her. But it was all based off of how you saw things. Either you could see the mud puddle or you could see the beauty in it all. So what has that relationship with grandma in so many ways? What do you think it's done?
I think it's showing her the beauty side of things.
The beautiful side of things that might be genuinely ugly. Is that relationship with grandma, I think it kind of snatched some things away from her.
Yeah, because she hated her for so long, now she's gone, she feels.
The emptiness and the loneliness based off of it, yes. But I think she just keeps rehashing or reanalyzing the fear and the discomfort of a lot of her.
She probably feels she should have did more
Yeah,
while she was alive.
yes, exactly what that is. Okay, any more questions about this?
What about the mother? Where is the mother?
Mom is dead as well, I believe, based off of the text.
She's really dead.
Yeah, she's by herself. Well, I'm sorry, not dead. No interest in the seldom seen mom, so mom wasn't around. Mom didn't raise her. Based off of this chunk alone, we can infer mom wasn't there, maybe grandma did the raising, but grandma's dead now. So I think these are all a whole bunch of deep, deep-seated feelings and issues that the author is really trying to portray to the reader about how Janie feels about herself.
When it says she should go and find him, does that mean, like, they're dead, right? And she wants to go find them. Does that mean she's planning on, like, killing herself?
That's really interesting. So reread that line for me?
She had been getting ready for a great journey to the horizons in search of people. It was important to all the world that she should find him and they find her.
Very good, yeah. That might perhaps be foreshadowing. I'm talking about maybe something that she's feeling, that loneliness is killing her inside, killing her so much so that she's going to go in search of people. What people? Who are these people? It's not clear, but that's a really, really good insight that you gathered from that. Is there anything else that you want to add to that, Andre? Okay, so she might be looking for someone or some people to come and fill this emptiness or this void that she's had in her life. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go on and we're going to start to respond to some of the questions that would better help us to kind of really get into the frame of mind of Janie as a character. And we're going to go on and we're going to do an activity with characterization and also with the imagery used. I'd like for us to go into the actual bio poem that we discussed about this unit, and we're going to use some words to help describe Janie as a character.